Now I don't know about you guys, but I think it's about time we get rid of the true Patriot meta.
The one my heart has gone to me, not gone to wait. Tico, 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 tock. Tico, tick. Oh, tico, 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 tock. Tico, tick. Oh, tico, 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 tock. Tico, tick. Oh, tico, tico, tock. This tico, tico, he's a cuckoo in my car.
Now, before we get to the rest of the video, guys, which I know you guys are eager to see, I do got to take a second and give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, BenQ. BenQ hit me up and wanted to send me a monitor so I could try it out and tell you guys about it. And to be honest, I really do like this monitor. Now, I'm going to give you guys my personal opinion and my favorite thing about this monitor. Now, keep in mind, I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to specs and little things like that, but I do enjoy this monitor. And my favorite thing about this monitor is that it has speakers. My previous monitors did not have speakers, so if I wanted to hear something from the PC, I would have to plug in some external monitors or use headphones, and sometimes I don't want to have headphones on, you know what I mean? Now, I never realized how enjoyable it is to have speakers already in the monitors. Also, the speakers sound really good. Like, I can blast music out of them, which means that I don't always have to have headphones on, you know, so it comes in really handy. But I do have a list of features that I'm going to tell you guys, because like I said, I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to talking about specs and things like that, but I do have a list for you guys so you guys can know, so you guys can have an idea of how good these monitors are. Now, the monitor is a 27-inch QHD screen for immersive gameplay, guys. It's not too big, not too small. It's the perfect size for a monitor. It also has FreeSync and 144 Hz for smooth images, and I can vouch for that because I was playing Division 2 on it a little bit ago, and it's actually smooth, no problems. The images look fine, everything's great. It has IPS panels for wide viewing angles. It also has those built-in speakers I was talking about, which come in very handy. It has a remote control for easy access to various settings and multiple ports for all kinds of content. And lastly, guys, another thing that it does have is BenQ's eye care technology for viewing comfort. You know, it's a great monitor all around, like I said, guys. And again, huge shout out to BenQ for sponsoring this video and their monitors. I'm gonna leave some links down below, guys, so you guys can go check them out. Once again, BenQ, thank you so much for the monitor. I hope to work with you guys in the future. But let's get straight into the video, guys. I'm sorry I kept you waiting, but again, guys, check the links below in the description if you want to know more about BenQ. They're great monitors, great speakers, all that good stuff, guys. But anyways, let's get back to it. What is going on, guys? It is Example, and we're finally here with our anti-meta build for True Patriot. Now, this build does work against other builds. It does work against DPS builds, skill builds, all that stuff. If you know how to use this build, it's an all-around build that works really well against any build. That's why I'm calling it an anti-meta build. Well, as we all know, True Patriot is probably the most used build right now, including with rifles and maybe skill builds. But definitely True Patriot is on the top. 90% of the people in the dark zone right now have True Patriot. But hopefully, after I put this build out, a lot more of you start using this build instead of True Patriot, because this build does have some things like the True Patriot builds have, like the Firewall Medkit and the Bleed Hive. But a million times, I would rather fight this build than to fight True Patriots. Now, I did put a lot of gameplay in the beginning of the video because so many people were being annoying in my last video talking about, oh, but you're not getting stacks and that. Like, the fact that I have to sit here now and explain the reason why this build works against True Patriots is mind-blowing, that people really couldn't put 2 and 2 together. My last video on this build was just me testing it against different players, but you know, everybody always has some sort of comment when it comes to that. But so let me explain why this build works so well against True Patriots. Now, True Patriots normally run Unbreakable, they run the Firewall Medkit, they run the Bleed Hive with a Pestilence, correct? So the reason True Patriot is so strong is because as they're shooting you, they're healing, they're debuffing you for 8%, and they're getting damage for 8%, as well as the Pestilence. So when you're getting hit by the Pestilence ticks, and you have the 8% debuff, the Pestilence is hitting you harder than any other build would because you're getting debuffed. So that is why True Patriot hurts so much when you're getting shot, and that's why they love to face tank, because the faster they get the debuffs on you from True Patriot, the more damage they're doing, the more they're healing. And the reason why this build is a good counter to that is because it's Striker. And if you guys don't know what Striker does from Division 1, pretty much it is weapon hits amplify weapon damage by 0.05%, stacking up to 50 times. Now, that can be 100 times if I run the chess piece, but I don't need to run the chess piece, especially because it is really hard to get stacks currently. And I think Striker needs a little bit of a rework because you lose way too many stacks for missing ones. You know, it takes a lot to build up those stacks, and you lose them way too fast. So like I said, the reason this build is good is because if you use the medkit to face tank the True Patriot, and it's crazy that a lot of people, by the way, before you say, oh, Example, using the Firewall Medkit is cheese, let me tell you what the counter to the Firewall Medkit is. You ready? Don't shoot. It's literally that simple. I don't know why people think like, oh my god, this guy's running the Firewall Medkit, he's untouchable. Literally, I'm exposing part of my build right now by telling you this. And it's crazy how many people don't know about this. If you're fighting somebody that has the Firewall Medkit and you're about to kill them and you know that they're going to get that medkit off, don't shoot. You shooting while they're in that medkit is you wasting your time. Now, if you guys are Division 1 players, put it this way. When somebody popped the blue on Division 1, you wouldn't shoot, would you? It's the same exact thing. You wait those couple seconds until the medkit is gone, and then you start shooting again. And if they pop another medkit, you do the same thing again. Like, it's really simple to counter the firewall medkit. So before you guys come at me and talk about, example, you're running the firewall medkit, literally, if somebody's in their firewall medkit, don't shoot them. It's that simple. I promise you, it's that simple. Now, as you guys may know, the most used weapons currently are probably the Pestilence and the M1A, followed by like Vectors and ARs. But definitely the Pestilence and the M1A are definitely up there. So we are using the Pestilence in this build. But like I said, guys, I don't rely on anything on this build. If they were to nerf the Pestilence to the ground, this build will work fine if you just switch to another LMG that you're able to stack with. But yeah, so we're using the Pestilence. Why? Because we're trying to counter True Patriot. And True Patriots love to run the Pestilence with their debuffs because the Pestilence ticks do way more damage when you're debuffed. And they're also healing from all the damage you're taking from the Pestilence. So since we are trying to end that meta, we are using a Pestilence. So our Pestilence is hitting for 77.6k with 15% LMG damage, with 8% damage to targets that are cover and 5% damage to armor. Now, I'm sure all of you guys know what the Pestilence, the Plague of the Outcast, does. Is when you shoot somebody, you can stack them with the Plague of the Outcast and they take damage over time. The more you stack, the more damage you do. So that is why most people are running the Pestilence. Now, of course, secondary weapons and sidearms are always up to you. I prefer having a Police M4 assault rifle with max rolls for health damage, swap speed. We also got strained on the weapon, and we have a little sidearm that I use here and there, but not, it's not, we don't always use it often. But yeah, so priority gun would be the Pestilence. Now, you can use this build with an AR instead of running the contracted gloves. You can always switch it to Fenris gloves and just run ARs. But like I said, if you are fighting a True Patriot, I would suggest face tanking them with the Pestilence because they will be using the Pestilence. When you run into a True Patriot, I can almost guarantee you 99% of the time they're going to be shooting you with a Pestilence, and the only way to counter that is by you having a Pestilence too. Now, as you guys can see, this build consists of 5 blues in the red, 4-piece Striker, 1-piece Gila, and 1-piece Petrov, which can be the contractor gloves or regular Petrov gloves. That works fine too. So starting it off with the mask, we have the core attribute max roll for armor. We have headshot damage and 11.3 crit damage on the mod. Now, I can definitely farm for a mask with crit damage or crit chance on it, and that goes for every Striker piece as well. I haven't gotten them yet, but like I said, what you're aiming for is Striker pieces with crit chance and damage, because even though this isn't a crit chance build, you still want to have crit chance and damage at least a little bit, you know what I mean? So unless you're on PC, then maybe you can just hit headshots, because my build right now actually has headshot damage. I don't find it too difficult to hit headshots from time to time, but it's not like I aim for them. I'm on console. I can't be aiming for headshots all the time. But yeah, so our mask has max armor roll, headshot damage, and crit damage from the mod. Now moving to our backpack. Now, the reason I'm running the backpack for Striker is because of the risk management talent, which is decreases stacks lost, missed shots for Strikers gamble from 3 to 2. So you lose less stacks when you start missing, but it's still 2 stacks is still a lot to lose when you miss. Like, the ratio is a little off, but I'm running this so that I don't lose too many stacks when I miss. Now, like I said, you could run the chest piece to get more damage from your stacks, but I think efficient is very needed, especially when you're fighting True Patriots. So our backpack has, again, max armor roll, 10.7% crit damage, and 5% crit chance on the mod. Now, moving on to the holster, guys. Remember, like I said, you can definitely get better pieces than me. I already told you what you should farm for, but our holster has max armor roll, 4.3% headshot damage, which can easily be crit chance or damage. Moving on to our knee pads, we got max armor roll with hazard protection. And again, both these pieces right here could be way better. I just haven't gotten them, but you guys get the picture of, what you should be aiming for. But even the build like this, we're missing out on some crit chance and damage from these 2 pieces. It works fine. Now, moving on to our chest piece, guys, we got the 1-piece Gila for that total armor. We got max armor roll, we got 10% headshot damage, we got 3.8 crit chance, and we also have a mod for burn resistance. And the talent, of course, is efficient. Now, in my experience, guys, I'm always running solo, so efficient comes in very handy. Especially because this build, you're not running any heals, you're not running a hive, you're not running a chem, so you have to rely on your medkits, especially if you're solo like me. 90% of the time I run solo. If you guys watch my live streams, you know that. I'm always solo. So efficient is a really good talent, especially when you run solo like me and you're fighting more than one person. You can pop those medkits. Don't be scared to pop medkits, man. If you're running efficient on your build, pop those medkits. Even if you don't think you need it, you're running efficient for a reason. You don't have heals on your build for you to be hesitating whether you should pop a medkit or not. Of course, you have to be smart with your medkits, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you're relying on the medkits for this build, right? So use them. And if you don't know what efficient is using an armor kit has a 50% chance not to consume the armor kit. Now, a lot of people dislike Firewolf with efficient because of the second part of the talent. If you read efficient, second part of the talent is specials, armor kits, bonuses are increased by 100%. And if you guys know all specialists, they all have a different kind of armor kit, and with efficient, that armor kit gets an 100% bonus increase. So when you're running a firewall, you get like a 300% armor repair for 10 seconds, something crazy like that. But that reason alone is why this build is so good against true patriots. And like I said before, I would rather a million times fight this build than fight true patriots running this. But yeah, so that is our chest piece. Max armor roll, max headshot roll, 3.8% chance, and a 9.4 burn resistance mod. The mods is, of course, is always up to you guys, whatever mods you want to use. But I would suggest if you have red mods, you should put crit chance and damage on your build. Now moving on to our last piece, like I said guys, we do have contractor gloves, and contractor gloves are getting nerfed, but like I said, if they get nerfed to the ground and they're just terrible pieces, then you can just run the regular Patriot gloves on the build, you know. But I don't think they're gonna nerf it to the ground. I think contractor gloves, they're just gonna lower the damage to armor a little bit. But we got max roll, contractor gloves, 50% weapon damage, 11% damage to armor, and 14% weapon handling, which is all great all around. So to summarize real quick guys, we got the pestilence, we got 4-piece striker with the backpack, so you lose less stacks. We got the 1-piece Gila with efficient, we got max armor rolls on 5 of our pieces, plus max damage roll on our gloves, right? So pretty straightforward, pretty easy build to make, I'm not gonna lie to you. And moving on to our skills. Now the skills are very important. Now, like I said before, I normally run solo, right? And if you saw in a lot of those clips, I'm putting down my bleed hive to make sure that a lot of people don't push me at the same time. Because when you get put on bleed, your first reaction is to back away, you know, and you know, heal up. And because bleed hives, for some reason, by the way, bleed hives do need some tweaking as well. Because tier 1 bleed hives should not be doing as much damage as they do. I don't know if you guys noticed, but tier 1 bleed hives do so much damage, which they shouldn't be doing that much damage. The only bleed hives that should be doing damage is when you're like tier 4 and up, you know, something like that. But the main reason to run a bleed hive, like I said, is because also true patriot pestilence builds love to run bleed hives to just keep doing extra damage to you, so they can keep healing more. But that's why I'm running a jammer. So jammer and bleed hive are a perfect combo because you can jam their skills and you can use a bleed hive for crowd control. But half the time people are running the same thing, bleed hive with jammer. But again, it always comes down to knowing how to use the build, knowing how to time your jammers and your bleed hives, and knowing how to position everything. But that's pretty much the build, guys. It's pretty straightforward. It's 1.7 million armor, and the reason I suggest to run striker 4-piece with high armor is because as you're stacking damage, you're getting damage. So you have a lot of armor and a lot of damage if you're able to stack. That's why striker has always been so loved, because it gives you a little bit of both. It's like you have to work for your damage. Does that make sense? So I think running striker, it works the best when you're running it with armor, because with armor you have way more space to get those stacks. You know, you can face tank more, because if you run striker with DPS, how can you face tank somebody and get those stacks up? You know what I mean? Especially right now since it's so hard to get them. So we have 9.2% chance and 47% damage, which can be raised if I farm for better knee pads and better holster. I could get a little more chance, a little more damage. But you gotta remember, this isn't a crit chance and damage build. This is a counter to true patriot. You're tanky and you're getting damage as you shoot. We also have 86% headshot damage, which isn't bad. We got 16% armor damage, which isn't bad either. But we're gonna scroll through this because a lot of people do like looking at these stats. But yeah, so that's the build, man. It works really well. I'm telling you, it works so good against almost every build in the game. Now I do have other builds in the making. I have an explosive resistance build that's pretty much done. I have a hazard protection build that's pretty much done, except for the fact that Wicked does not work. The talent Wicked isn't working. You don't get the extra damage you should be getting. But yeah, so those builds will come soon. Now for the mods on my skills, I don't really have good mods. Of course, on your bleed hive you want to put damage and maybe you know, charges, and on your jammer you want to put something like range and things like that. But guys, that's the build. Again, if you missed it and if you maybe you just want to skip, and we're just gonna recap real quick. Firewall specialist with efficient, 4-piece striker with the backpack, and 1-piece Petra, which is the contractor gloves. 4 blues, 1 red, 1.7 million armor with a pestilence, which you can farm for in the dark zone. If you guys don't know, pestilences are really they're really common in the dark zone. So if you need a pestilence, they're in the dark zone. But you have to know how to use the build. Like I said, you have to know how to time your med kits. You have to know how to time your jammers, and always make sure to try to face tank so you can get those stacks like you saw in my gameplay. And I promise you, you guys will be out there murdering all these meta builds. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if this is messy. I'm always terrible at making build videos, but I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to drop a like. Tell me what you think of the build. Tell me if you're gonna make it and try it out. Just let me know what you think. But anyways, guys, it has been example. Catch you guys later.
Who wants to be king?